Okay, so got a message, I don't know, from somewhere. I don't know, must have been an email. We're still having the Red Cross blood drive that we normally have on April the 9th. So if you can possibly come to the place where we give blood, I don't even know. What is that place? The activity center. And the Red Cross has guaranteed that they will have, the proper distance and cleaning and everything like that. But we need lots of blood. And so if you can give blood on April the 9th, you'll get your extra credit points for that. I will put an announcement in our course, and then you can plan. So that it's a week from tomorrow. Oh yeah, because it's always on a Thursday, so it's a week from tomorrow.
What times are they open?
Oh, I don't remember. Let me see. Oh, you know what? I didn't get an email. It was in our meeting yesterday. President Haney said. So it's usually like 10 to 5. So, and you could call the Red Cross number, the 1-800, I don't know, whatever Red Cross number is, probably Red Cross. And they have all the schedules of all the donation, the blood drives. So if you could do that, then that would be a lovely thing. And I don't, our world is foolish enough today that I didn't do any April Fool's things. I always like to, but wasn't even gonna do that today. So okay.
I made my younger daughter wake up my older daughter, telling her that I just got an email from school and that they needed to get ready for school right now or they were going to be late.
That's beautiful. That's a good one. I like that. Okay, so oh, what am I doing? I don't want that. Well, that's okay. All right, so I'm gonna go. I've got to find my PowerPoint. Go out of that. Okay, and go back in. There we go. Okay, so here is where we left off. Oh, look at that, 9 o'clock. Okay, so here's where we left off last time. I can't remember if I think I showed you this picture. So this is what the lining of the large intestine looks like. It's still going to have the folds in it, but they're not going to be as deep and numerous as the folds that we find in the small intestine because it doesn't have as much of an absorptive function. But again, still lots and lots of goblet cells. We can see all of these white things. So lots and lots of mucus that we're going to be producing in our digestive system. Okay, we've seen this picture before. We saw it in lab, but that was a while ago. And so just to remind you, here is around the anus. And so when we're regulating defecation, then we've got the internal anal sphincter, which is going to be made out of smooth muscle. And then we'll have the external anal sphincter, which is going to be skeletal muscle. So if we look at that, oh, sorry, it's not on PowerPoint view. Hang on. There we go. If we take a look at the reflex arc of how this works, so here will be the receptors for the presence of feces in the rectum, and then those sensory nerve fibers will just go to the spinal cord and then come back out through the splanchnic nerve, actually part of this involuntary motor nerve, part of the parasympathetic, and then we'll relax the internal anal sphincter so that the feces can come out. But if we don't want them to come out, then we have this conscious control. So we're aware of it, the pressure inside of here, and then that will go up to our cerebral cortex, and then coming down from our cerebral cortex will be the voluntary contraction of the external anal sphincter, which is skeletal muscle. So again, I don't know how, it's amazing as humans how we're able to figure that out, how I got to contract that, and works in dogs and cats and whatever, I guess. Well, I don't know about cats, but dogs for sure, when we get them housebroken. Okay, anyway, going on. All right, so let's talk about the liver for a minute. You're probably not aware of how important your liver is for most of everything in your body. Large number of functions in the liver, which we're not going to get all into them, but we will do some of them that are pertinent to specifically the digestive system. So liver cells are called hepatocytes, and the liver is very, very leaky as far as its capillaries are concerned. So once the blood from our digestive system, so in through the superior and inferior vena cava, superior and inferior mesenteric veins, splenic vein, left gastric vein, as those all go into the hepatic portal vein, then that will go into the liver. And then the sinusoid capillaries, so the most porous capillaries of all, will then allow the blood to be processed by the hepatocytes. So there are a couple of things that the hepatocytes are going to do. First of all, they're going to process all those nutrients that are in there. So remember that the liver stores glycogen, and so as we absorb glucose, then that large amount of glucose that'll be entering the liver will be converted to glycogen and stored within the liver. We have to filter out toxins, so we have to take the alcohol out and change that to acetic acid. We have to process acetaminophen and ibuprofen, and not so much ibuprofen as like acetaminophen. And so that's why it's really, it's scary. So, oh my gosh, okay, people. So people I've noticed on the internet are arguing about, oh, should I use ibuprofen for COVID-19 fevers, or should I not? Is that harmful? And then if people say, oh yeah, don't take it at all, and then people are gonna start taking Tylenol, and then they're like, oh, I'm gonna take lots of Tylenol, and then they're gonna kill their livers. So I just get so frustrated to the point where I just can't even read things anymore, because I'm tired of helping people understand, educating people, and then they get all crabby at you and stuff. But so whatever we take into the body that is potentially toxic, we have to be careful, because it will affect the liver, especially acetaminophen, and so Tylenol. And so please be careful. What do we already know? And I've read this in a couple of places on social media. Let your fever do its job, because that's your body trying to fight off the infection. Well, duh, we already know that. So so we don't, I'm preaching to the choir here. So let your fever go. Well, don't get COVID-19. I don't want anybody to get that. But we already know, if you have a fever, please don't try to dampen your fever. Let it run its course if you can stand it, and if it hasn't ramped up to like 104. If it gets to 103, friends, go ahead and take your fever reducer. But keep in mind also that acetaminophen's in a lot of stuff. And so if you're taking, some cold medicine, but then you take some Tylenol, and now you've doubled up and tripled up on a dose of acetaminophen, and people don't realize that and have suffered because of that. Okay, so I'm off my soapbox on that. Then remember that we have several places in the body that have resident macrophages. So we do in the liver, obviously, because that hepatic portal vein is going to be bringing everything in from the digestive system. So we've got the Kupffer cells that are there in the liver to help protect. In addition to the glucose that I mentioned that the hepatocytes will be processing, they also will store the fat-soluble vitamins. So vitamins A, D, and E all need to be processed in fat. So that's why when you take vitamin D and vitamin E, it's always good to take it in a capsule with oil in it, and not, in a powdered form, because it's supposed to be in an oil. Long time ago, doctors, if they had a patient that seemed to have some nutrient deficiency, they'd always tell them eat some liver, because there's lots of stuff in liver, and sure enough, there is lots of stuff in liver, and especially the fat soluble vitamins. Now, because they're fat soluble, they get stored in the liver and other, in your adipose and stuff. But because your liver is going to take those out, they also can be taken to toxic levels. So you've got to be careful how much vitamin A, D, and E that you take. Vitamin B and C, vitamin C is fine. You can take tons of those, and that's just going to wash out of you. I think Linus Pauling, who was the one who really figured out the structure of vitamin C and studied it through his whole life, he would take thousands and thousands and thousands of milligrams of vitamin C. And he was old when he died, like in his 90s, I think, when he died. And then, and vitamin B, the various vitamin Bs are not too bad, but you may have a reaction. Like if you take too much niacin, it can make you itch and your face turn red and flushed and make you feel horrible. So anyway, so be careful with everything that you take. So we did the detoxify the blood, and then the hepatocytes also produce bile. So today we're going to talk about what we already did in lab, but we're going to talk about what is bile for specifically. So if we take a look at this picture of a liver, this is a good looking liver. It's a good color. It's a good shape and size. And I don't know why the gallbladder is not green, because every gallbladder I've ever seen has always been green, because that's what a color bile is. But anyway, so there's what your liver looks like on the right side of your body. Okay, so what is bile made out of? Well, it's the primarily, besides lipids and some electrolytes and cholesterol, well, lipids, it's the leftover breakdown product of red blood cells. So remember when the spleen takes the red blood cells out of circulation, the ones that need to be removed, that I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, the heme, the iron is conserved, is recycled, but the rest of the hemoglobin molecule must be eliminated from the body, primarily the heme pigment. And so what's going to happen is that's going to go into the blood, and then it's going to go to the liver. And because remember, you got that splenic vein that's going to go into the hepatic portal vein. And so once the heme has gone there, it's already started to break down, because think about what a bruise looks like in its different stages. So when you first bruise, it's going to be that blackish bluish color, purpley color, because that's the deoxygenated of blood. That's the red blood cells there. But as the red blood cells start being broken down within your skin, then the bruise goes to a yellowy green color. Well, guess what? That's because it's breaking up the hemoglobin. So your liver is going to get this biliverdin that it's then going to convert to bilirubin, and then that's going to be eliminated from the body. So that's why it's that yellowy green color is from hemoglobin. Bile is also alkaline. We want it to be alkaline because it's going to be dumping into the duodenum, where that really acidic chyme has just come in from the stomach. And we talked about what is the purpose of bile is to emulsify fats. So once segmentation breaks up our fat globules into little fat droplets, then we want the fat droplets to remain in circulation and or remain in suspension. And so we emulsify them. We wrap them up in bile salts so that they don't clump together again. They're also going to be used with fat and cholesterol absorption that we'll look at maybe today, definitely Friday if we don't get to it today. And then the bile salts, so the little things that stick to the outside of the fat droplets, we recycle those, and the rest of the material is eliminated in our feces. And that's what makes our feces brown. So it's a collection of all that yellowy green pigment is now brown and goes out in our feces. And just by the way, if your feces are white, then you have liver disease. because the bilirubin is not being taken out by the liver and put into the bile. Instead, it's staying within your bloodstream and it's making you look yellow. Hey, look it, there's yellow again. So when you have liver disease, you have jaundice because the bilirubin is still within your bloodstream, and you have white feces. So this was quite some time ago, but this just shows you how weird social media is. I had a student then ask me, so do birds have liver disease? And I said, no. And she goes, then why is their poop white? And then I said, oh, because later on we're going to talk about the white part of bird droppings is actually their urine. I said, no, their feces are black. And she said, oh, okay. And so then she posted on Facebook. I wasn't even a friend of hers. And she posted on Facebook something about birds don't have liver disease or something like that. And then the lady that works in the cub house in Bashes, she posted that. She shared it on her Facebook page, and then that popped up as on mine. I'm like, what in the world? So be careful what you put on Facebook, because you never know. And actually be careful what you say all around people, because you never know where it's going to show up somewhere. So that was really funny. So birds don't have liver disease. Okay, and fatty chyme. So the presence of fat within the chyme is going to stimulate the release of bile and increase bile output, which we'll look at here in just a few minutes. Okay, so bile, in fact, we're going to look at it next. So bile is stored within the gallbladder. That's why the gallbladder is green when not needed for digestion. If you've had your gallbladder removed, then the bile stays within the liver, and then it'll just be released from there. And it's a good idea, if you have your gallbladder removed, to reduce the amount of fat that you consume, because you're not producing as much bile, and it can irritate and make you feel gross and stuff. But my dad had his gallbladder out in like 1966 or 67 or something like that. And he never changed his diet until he couldn't eat anymore. And so anyway, I didn't realize it as a kid. I just, I knew he didn't have a gallbladder, and I knew he liked to eat fatty foods, but sorry, I'm trying to finish my breakfast as I talk to you guys. Okay, so when it's time to start digesting your food and start emulsifying fats, then the gallbladder and the sphincter of Oddi, which is the pancreohepatic sphincter, I'll show you what that is in a minute, are stimulated when CCK is released during the intestinal phase. Oh, okay, remember back, so we're just going to scoot back here to gastric secretion, to our intestinal phase. Okay, remember that during this inhibitory phase that we're going to release some substances. Okay, so there they are right there. Okay, so here is in the small intestine, the enteroendocrine cells in the small intestine are going to release, there it is right there, cholecystokinin, or CCK, and, there it is, CCK again. And now not only are we going to use it to stop gastric secretion, but we are going to use it to stimulate bile release. So it's a dual duty enzyme. It's going to do, or hormone, it's going to do several different things related to digestion. And so it's a great thing. All right, so then bile is released when acidic fatty chyme enters the duodenum. CCK also stimulates secretion of pancreatic juice. So we're going to look at that, but first we're going to look at how it affects the liver and the gallbladder, and then we'll take a look at how the hormones affect the pancreas. Okay, so the sphincter of Oddi, there's a little sphincter right here on this thing that looks like a pacifier, and then that's going to relax. And then the products from the pancreohepatic duct will then enter into the duodenum. But let's start number one right here. So acidic fatty chyme entering the duodenum causes the release of these two hormones, other hormones too, but to inhibit gastric secretion. But we are going to focus on cholecystokinin and secretin here. So here are the enteroendocrine cells in the wall of the duodenum. So then cholecystokinin and secretin enter the bloodstream. So now we're going to go over here to 3, Bile salts and secreted, transported via the bloodstream, stimulate the liver to produce more bile more rapidly. Okay, so now we've got the secretin, the little, oh, it went this way, the little blue circles, and the bile salts that we reabsorbed from the ileum are going to stimulate the liver. But then the cholecystokinin is going to go to the gallbladder and the hepatopancreatic sphincter and cause this to start contracting to release the bile down through this bile duct right here and into the duodenum, and then the bile will then be there for that fatty chyme that's coming in from the stomach. All right, so now not only do we need the bile to be there, but we need to have the pancreatic enzymes as well. So now we'll talk about what the pancreas is going to do. So in addition to producing insulin and glucagon as its endocrine function through the islets of Langerhans, the pancreas is going to produce the enzymes for digestion, but it's also going to produce a neutralizer for that acidic chyme that's coming down in from the stomach. So it's going to produce a juice with water and electrolytes, specifically bicarbonate. Okay, this one right here. So in the liver, no, in the pancreas, we have clusters of cells, not the islets of Langerhans this time, but acinar cells whose job it is to produce enzymes. And I'll show you a picture of what that looks like in a minute. So epithelial cells then are going to release the bicarbonate. The epithelial cells are going to line the ducts coming from the acini. An acinus is a little cluster of cells. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. So the acinar cells will be producing the enzymes. The epithelial cells will produce the bicarbonate that neutralizes the acidic chyme and then provides the optimal environment for intestinal pancreatic enzymes. Okay, so here's a little picture of what an acinus looks like. So it's kind of like a cul-de-sac. So these cells right here are going to produce the zymogens. Zymogens are, so think of enzyme, okay? So zymogen, enzyme formers. Isn't that fun? I think that's a fun word. Okay, so these are like the trypsin and the chymotrypsin and the carboxypeptidase that we looked at in lab forever ago. And they're going to come out in an inactive form. And the first one's going to come out as trypsinogen, and then it's going to convert it to trypsin, and then it's going to convert the rest of the enzymes into their active form. So these are all acinar cells. So this little cul-de-sac right here is an acinus. And here we have lots of acini. So every one of these like little circular things is an acinus. It's a little cul-de-sac of acinar cells. Then we have the little ducts. We have lots of ducts that come away from the acini and then connect together to form bigger and bigger and bigger ducts. And so they're going to be surrounded or formed by simple cuboidal epithelium. So the cells of this simple cuboidal epithelium then will be producing the bicarbonate pancreatic juice. So I'll have the enzymes come out of the acinus, and then the bicarbonate come out, and then they'll all mix together in the duct, and then they'll go into the pancreatic duct. So in order to stimulate pancreatic secretion, you need both hormones, because the pancreas is going to produce the bicarbonate-rich juice, and then it's going to produce the enzymes. So the secretin is going to stimulate the pancreas to produce the bicarbonate-rich pancreatic juice. So it's going to release the bicarbonate. So it'll be stimulating the epithelial cells, whereas the CCK will be stimulating the acinar cells to release their enzymes. Okay, so secretin stimulates epithelial cells for bicarbonate production, and then CCK is going to stimulate the acinar cells for enzyme release. And then here's just the picture of that. So acidic chyme entering the duodenum causes the enteroendocrine cells to release secretin, whereas the fatty protein-rich chyme induces release of cholecystokinin. So they both enter the bloodstream together. And then here we go. Upon reaching the pancreas, cholecystokinin is the enzymes, and secretin is the bicarbonate. And then during the cephalic and gastric phases, stimulus by the vagal nerve fibers causes a release of pancreatic juice as well. So you've got some pancreatic juice in here, waiting for the acidic chyme to come down. Okay, I haven't seen questions for a minute. So, oh, where's my, let me get rid of this. Yes. How high, let's see. I've heard that when women are on their period that ibuprofen doesn't affect your liver. I doubt it. I don't know why you would be on your period that it would suddenly have no effect. And then when you are on your period, I mean, when you are in your period, it doesn't have an effect. And then all of a sudden you get off and now it affects your liver. So I wouldn't prescribe to that, or ascribe to that. Because I haven't heard that either, but anyway. So then the next question is, how high would I let the temp go for a child who is 9 or 11? 102.3. That's just maybe 103. Ugh, 102.7. But that's my personal cutoff for me and my kids. But, you know, because my kids never went above 102.7. I don't ever remember, you know, 103 or more in my kids ever in their lives. So, so that's that. Does more fat in the chyme? Nope. More fat in the chyme just makes the chyme be more fatty. The more food you eat is going to make it more acidic, because you're releasing more gastric juice. So there isn't going to be a change in the acidic composition of chyme, but there will definitely be a change in the fatty nature of chyme, because that's all going to be based on how much fat you're eating. But the kinds of foods that you're eating really isn't going to affect how much acid you're producing. It's just how much food you're eating is going to affect how much acid that you produce. Okay, good questions. And I'll try to keep my eye on the little flashy square, but sometimes it comes and then it disappears and I catch it out of the corner of my eye and I'm like, oh, what was that? Okay, whoops, let's get rid of that. All right, so this is a review now of all the stuff that we did in lab. So I don't know that you have your little lab packet, or not your packet, but that sheet that I gave you. The chart that had all the enzymes. So you'll want to refer back to that. I'm just going to go through it as we have it here in your notes, but review that sheet that I gave you. Okay, so chemical digestion is when food is broken down into monomers by hydrolysis, because remember, we're going to be eating organic molecules. And those organic molecules are going to come in our food as polymers. And so now they're too large to absorb. So they have to be broken down into their individual monomers. And you know what? Let's do this. Oh, I already did this. So never mind. Okay, so what are the monomers of carbohydrates? They are the monosaccharides. So the polysaccharides that we eat, starch and sugar, well, sugar is actually just a disaccharide. Just the starches are the polysaccharide. Cellulose, amylose, glycogen. So those are the polymers that we're eating. And so they have to be broken down into the 3 monosaccharides of the food that we eat, which is glucose, fructose, and galactose. The 3 disaccharides that we consume, so maltose is glucose and glucose hooked together. Sucrose is glucose and fructose hooked together, and then lactose is glucose and galactose hooked together. So that's where those monosaccharides come in. They come from maltose, lactose, and sucrose. So the starches will be broken down by salivary amylase in the mouth, and then pancreatic amylase when it gets into the duodenum. Remember, there's no carbohydrate digestion that takes place in the stomach, because the pH of the stomach is far too acidic for the amylase to work. So that's why we have to give it a double shot of amylase. So we had the salivary amylase in our mouth, and then we denature it in our stomach, and then it goes down into the duodenum, and then we have to shoot it again with some more amylase to finally get it down to the disaccharide level. And then the brush border enzymes that are in the microvilli of the duodenum, like lactase and maltase and sucrase, so they'll be sitting there in the microvilli of the duodenum, and then as those disaccharides bind, then they'll be broken up into their individual monosaccharides, and then we'll have transport carriers for those. Now, I don't know, because this thought just popped in my head. Because glucose, fructose, and galactose are all isomers of one another, so they're all C6H12O6. Can they use the same transporters? I'm gonna have to look that up. So I don't know. I would think, because it's the same chemical formula, why would you need to have separate transporters for each one of those? I don't know why after 35 years I've never thought about that. Oh well. Okay, then the next thing that we want to digest are the proteins. So remember, protein digestion is going to begin in the stomach in the presence of pepsin. And remember, what does it take to make pepsin? Well, the chief cells of the gastric glands are going to make pepsinogen. And then that pepsinogen, in the presence of hydrochloric acid made by the parietal cells in the gastric glands, will then convert pepsinogen to pepsin. So you got to have that acidic pH. Okay, so that's one protein enzyme, is pepsin. A second one is trypsin, and chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase. And then, so those will all come from the pancreas, and they will be activated in the duodenum at an alkaline and neutral pH. Once trypsin gets activated, then it's going to activate the other enzymes, trypsin and chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase. And then the brush border peptidases, like aminopeptidase, is going to finish the digestion into, just pop off the individual amino acids. So we're just going to cleave from either the amino end, so that would be aminopeptidase, or we're going to cleave from the carboxyl end, and that would be the carboxypeptidase. All right, so lipids, their sole site for digestion is in the small intestine. Remember, again, that the fat is going to just be hydrophobic, and so it's just going to all be together in a big film within that fatty chyme that just came from the stomach, and so we have to break up that film. So segmentation, so the actual physical segmentation is like shaking the bottle of Italian dressing. And then the fat, then the bile that's going to be in there will keep the little droplets suspended, and it won't settle out and rise to the top again. Okay, so bile from the liver emulsifies, while the lipases from the pancreas actually are going to break it up into glycerol and fatty acids. And I have a little chart of that here. Just a minute. And nucleic acids, we didn't talk about this in lab, but if you want to break them up, you just need pancreatic nucleases and brush border enzymes to break them down into their individual nucleotides. So obviously you're going to be eating DNA, because all of the cells of everything that you eat, because you don't eat non-living things, non-cellular things. Well, salt, but even, well, not flour. Flour doesn't have cells in it either. Well, some of the cells that you're eating, I guess not everything has cells in it. But the cells that you do eat will then have nucleic acid, DNA, and RNA that need to be digested into their individual components. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about absorption. So when food gets to small intestine, how much during the day? Okay, not all at once, but well, it depends on who you are and how much you eat. But over the day, about 10 liters of food and water enter your small intestine, but a liter or less reaches the large intestine. So you can see, 90% of all water and food is absorbed by the small intestine, because that's its job. Okay, it's long and it's got all of those things that increase surface area. So the plicae circularis and the villi and the microvilli all are designed for massive absorption. And I don't know if I told you guys, maybe this was last semester, but you cannot overwhelm the absorptive capacity of your small intestine. No matter how much you eat, which is crazy, but no matter how much you eat. So all of those little people that participate in food eating contests, every last drop of the digested material is absorbed. Oh my gosh, then I have got to burn those calories like crazy if it were me, or I would just balloon out into a much larger person than I am. So that's why I wish we had a little switch that we could turn it off and just let the food, turn off absorption. So I'm going to go strap on a food bag and I'm going to go to a buffet and I'm going to eat all I want so that I please the cephalic part of digestion, and then it just comes out the other end. And then we'd forget to turn the switch back on and then we'd starve to death. But okay, anyway, I hope I don't get too bad over the course of this COVID-19 stuff. So all of our food, so every last organic molecule that we can digest, so a little caveat there, 80% of the electrolytes, because remember some sodium, chloride, and potassium are going to make it on into the large intestine, and most of the water is absorbed by the small intestine. Most absorption is complete by the time it gets to the ileum, and bile salts are absorbed by the ileum. And then most nutrients are absorbed through the mucosa through co-transport and active transport. I think I'll show you a little video on that on Friday because it's kind of cool, but it's that same thing that we looked at. Oh, did we get through that in the first video from yesterday, where you have to absorb the sodium and then you have glucose goes with the sodium. So it's that same kind of co-transport mechanism. Because we want it to be active transport because we want every last bit of food. We don't want anything that's good to travel on out and be excreted in our feces. Bile salts with lecithin, which is essential fatty acid, with lipid byproducts form micelles for absorption into the lacteals. I'll show you a little picture of that here in just a minute. Yeah, so here was a question. If you're throwing up, it's because your stomach can't handle something and nothing else. So if you're like, you eat so much food and then you puke it all up after that, yeah, it's your stomach got too distended and your stomach's like, what the crap did you just do to me? And then you throw it all up. And remember, emesis is a protective mechanism anyway. Emesis, vomiting. And it's just, to make sure that you didn't have this big load that your body needed to try to digest. Okay, so electrolyte absorption. So like I just said, we got that co-transport of sodium with glucose amino acids. Okay, so those things will always be absorbed together. Bicarbonate ions are absorbed by active transport, exchange with bicarbonate or chloride ions, absorbed by active transport, exchange with bicarbonate ions. Oh, look at that. We still have a chloride shift even in our digestive system. Potassium is absorbed as water is absorbed. Now, this is a really important thing, you guys. I want you to remember, especially when you get to be parents. I mean, I want you to treat yourself, but this is something that's really important with your little kids. Anything interfering with water absorption will affect potassium absorption. Also, as diarrhea occurs, because potassium goes with water, if the water isn't being reabsorbed because you have diarrhea, potassium will actually get pulled into the lumen of the intestine. So you're going to get hypokalemia. So make sure, sorry, I'm eating something. Make sure that if you or your children suffer from diarrhea, not only do you have to put the water back because you're getting dehydrated, but you have to put the electrolytes back. So that's why it's good to have Pedialyte, because Pedialyte is just the water, a little bit of sugar, and the electrolytes that you or your child needs. Gatorade's okay, but because it's designed with electrolytes in it to put those back. That was the whole point in it being invented, but there's a lot of sugar in Gatorade. So, and sometimes the sugar can be kind of an irritant for you when you're trying to digest that while you have diarrhea. So I suggest Pedialyte is the best thing for you if you have diarrhea, what you should be taking to replace everything that's lost. And then calcium absorption, all the calcium that we consume in our dairy products and our calcium-rich vegetables. Remember that you have to have vitamin D. You have to have 125 dihydroxy vitamin D3. Always takes me a minute to think about what the active form is. But that has to be present in order for calcium to be absorbed. So it's just going to go out the other end if you don't have vitamin D. Okay. So I already talked about this back when we were talking about the liver, but vitamins A, D, E, and K, there's not an A deck vitamin. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K need to be dissolved in fat containing food for absorption. Okay, so that's why the best vitamin D and vitamin E supplements that you can take will come in a capsule in some oil. And then vitamin B and C are water soluble, except vitamin, and so you can absorb it as you're absorbing your water. But vitamin B12, remember, needs intrinsic factor made by the stomach in order to be absorbed. Okay, so this chart is basically just another way of putting together the chart that we did in lab. So here's our food. Those are the breakdown products. Here are the enzymes at each step. There's where it happens, and then path of absorption. This looks like fructose may have its own transporter because glucose, yeah, I guess fructose does. That's interesting. Because glucose and galactose, I don't know, I never read this till just now. Glucose and galactose absorbed by co-transport with sodium, like we said. Fructose passes via facilitated diffusion, which would mean it's a separate transporter. Okay, protein digestion, where it happens, what are the enzymes that are doing that, and what are the breakdown products? And again, here we've got amino acids absorbed via co-transport with sodium ions. Okay. So here's the fat, and then these are the two breakdown products of fats. You can break into a glycerol and 3 fatty acids, or you can be a monoglyceride and 2 fatty acids, because a monoglyceride is a glycerol with 1 fatty acid still attached to it. So we got that and that. And so we're going to look at this process here in just a minute, this path of absorption. And then I don't care about nucleic acid. Okay, so here is that cleaving process. This is kind of a cool picture. So here's the chymotrypsin that's just going to break, and it's not going to be randomly. I'm sure there's some specific, I don't know, between particular amino acids or something. I don't know. But anyway, somewhere where chymotrypsin is going to come down and allow hydrolysis to happen right here. But then here's that little carboxypeptidase popping off on the carboxyl end of those amino acids. And then the trypsin that's going to be helping break up the proteins. And then here are aminopeptidase, carboxypeptidase, dipeptidase as brush border enzymes. Okay, so they're going to help break it down. Then we've got the individual amino acids passing through the cell membrane, and then sometimes they can go back together again and be absorbed as a monopeptide, dipeptide, tripeptide, or a single amino acid. And they'll still pass through the cell membrane of the simple cuboidal epithelial cell, and then into, hang on, can you mute you, whoever unmuted yourself, because thanks. And then on into be absorbed into capillary. And so carbohydrates will go the same way, just like that. Oh, here is our little picture of our fat globule. Here's emulsification. And then here is a complicated way to absorb, obviously, but you don't have to remember these steps. Okay, so I'm just going to go through. So fatty acids and monoglycerides are going to clump together into little bubbles called micelles, and then the micelles will fuse with the cell membrane of the simple columnar simple cuboidal epithelium, and then now I've got the fats and fatty acids and monoglycerides going into the endoplasmic reticulum and then on into the Golgi, and they'll be packaged into these chylomicrons, and then the chylomicrons will cross the cell, and then the little actually the chylomicrons are these little units of 3. And then the little secretory vesicle will cross and dump out the little chylomicrons, and then they'll get absorbed into the lacteals. All I need you to know is that fatty acids and monoglycerides will pass through into the lacteal. That's all I care. Okay. All right. Oh, dang, we're done. That's awesome. Okay, so here then will be our plan for Friday. Since we've gone through everything, we can go back. Or we can leave early. I don't know. We got 7 minutes left. We will Kahoot on Friday. So we'll review for our test on Friday. Well, not our test on Friday. We will review on Friday for our test. And let's see. So let me get out of this. And
Can you say what you said again about fatty acids?
Oh, just know that they will go into the lacteal. That's all I care. Yep. Okay. Let's see. What was I going to do right now? Oh, okay. Let's go to our class dashboard. Oh, come on. Okay, I can't. Oh, there we go. All right. So, when do I have our? Oh, it's not in there. Let's go into our module. Oh, I haven't posted it yet. Okay, so let's go to our syllabus. Go to our announcements. Where is our new syllabus? Okay, here we go. So I have scheduled our test for the 6th. That's Monday. So what I'll do is open the test. I'll post it. Let's see. Let me do this again. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to post the test probably Friday, Saturday. Make it available. I'll make it available Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Okay, so you can take the test anytime, Saturday, Sunday, Monday that you want. And then on Wednesday, then we'll start in on urinary system for reals. And oh, while we're here, all right, so our last day of school is supposed to be the 8th. And I thought we would have into the next week. So I put our last test on the 8th and our final exam I didn't know. So our final exam has got to be taken by the 8th too. So I might scoot this back a couple days, but we'll just have to wait and see how things go. So know that these two may be different. This will probably be the same. So I won't really change. And that last day to withdraw, no, don't ignore that. So we'll talk. I'll post a thing about, and you've probably heard about, you could take a P in a class, just a pass fail in a class or whatever. I'll post an announcement about that.
I would like to take the P, please.
You can, it's a C, so, but you can probably get better than that. I wouldn't just settle with the C with the P. So at least make it to the end, Nicole.
I've got this. I can do it.
You do. Everybody's got this. I am not worried about you guys at all. We're just gonna drag you kicking and screaming through the rest of the semester. Okay, so that'll be it then for today. If nobody has any more questions, and then Friday will be all review. So we'll review respiratory stuff again. We'll play the Kahoot and do whatever we need to do to get ready for Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Can we do I thought you said we were going to do 6B, like the rest of 6 on this packet in order to prepare for the quiz?
I
No.
did. did that.
The
Did that.
sheet? Oh, I'm all
You're
off.
done. You're done. Do you see? Because you went to the arrows. I didn't do the B. No, we're not doing the B. Yeah, so no, oh, you can't see it. Where is it? Put it in front of my face. Oh, that stupid thing gets in the way. Oh, well, the bottom of the first page.
So we just needed to go to 6A and then we're good.
Then you're good. Yep, yep, yep. Yes, the library is open for you to print whatever you need to print. And what time will it close on Monday? 11:59 p.m. Ha, 11:59 a.m. How about that? No, 11:59 p.m. So attendance this week, no, just one. So McCall, just take a quiz. I mean, you're supposed to get them all done, but just, why does my nose look red? I look like Rudolph. Look at that. It's just that one circle right
Hey,
there.
Miss G.
Weird. Yes.
So contacting you outside of Zoom, did you want us to use your school email or no?
It doesn't matter. It all just pops up on my phone. So
Okay.
you can either email me at my EAC email, or you can message me or email me within Canvas. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
I accidentally printed off another packet if anyone needs it.
Social distancing.
I'll drop it at their door or they can come to my house.
Or you can mail it, or I don't know, whatever. Okay. Yeah, with the library thing, let's see. Only 10 people can be in the library at a time, and so they may have to make you wait if there's already 10 people in there. So there's one library person. I don't like that shading on my nose. That's fairly bad. Anyway, just know that if you get to the library, you may not be able to get in. I would call ahead of time if you're headed over there. Anything else from the body public? Okay, great. Well, this will be posted in about 10 minutes, and I just got to think about things I need to do. So we need the Zoom. I'll make a longer Zoom maybe, and I'm Zoom, Kahoot, all these names, and I don't know. Nicole will remind me if there's anything that I need to be doing that I'm not doing. So I appreciate that. All right, have a great day. We'll see you on Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Yeah, Ella, just go get stuff from her.